right. So, okay, I am trying a live video here for my 400 subscribers, which is pretty crazy to think about. Um, I'm going to be talking about some sermon preparation stuff. I tried to do a Twitch channel. I was trying to do something there. Let me go through a few things. First of all, typically my week is done in an interesting way. Gosh, I'm getting text messages on my computer, and so I can see kind of some of the stuff. Okay, so this you can see right here. This is a Logos layout. This is where I prepare my sermons. I do everything in Logos. I preach from Logos. This is my sermon outline for Sunday. Obviously, it's very, very bare bones. But my work week, I started doing this after listening to H.B. Charles talk about his sermon preparation, John MacArthur, even Steve Lawson. How those guys talked about their sermon prep. And I've kind of honed it all down into something that I like to do. Now, one thing I did was over on Twitch was I will do it again next week. I walked through my sermon, my sermon outline stuff, how I outline everything, and I did that, and then nobody really paid attention to the channel because it stunk. And so over here, I have started something else. I'm trying to it doesn't pick up Logos. Okay, so I got to I have to get back into another program real quick so you can see my iPad. But working through all of this stuff, let's see here. Let's see. If I can remember how to do all this stuff. Okay, so now we'll go turn off Logos and turn on my iPad. Nope, didn't work. Okay, what's going on here? This is not working out like I wanted it to. It should be working. Should be right there. It's not. It's not working though. Anyway, over on my iPad, I tried to. I'm using my iPad as my microphone. Am I? No, I'm not. Okay. Sorry, I'm figuring all this out. Thank you for bearing with me. Over on my iPad, if you were able to see and you're not able to see it, which is bonkers because it should work. But you can't. Whatever. I took and I copy and pasted my text, which is Psalm 63, and I just walk through it. This is what I do on Tuesday mornings, and maybe on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evenings, I might go through and write out every word in the Greek or Hebrew, things like that. And I'll try to just kind of dig in, just do some early meditations on my sermon preparation. Now, this week, what I'm going to try and do is as I do it, except for actually typing out my sermon, I'm going to walk you through how I start to get my mind wrapped around the text in the time that I spend doing it. So, if that's something you find interesting, cool. If not, you can just leave a comment below or whatever. But you see over here, if you can see my note, my arrow, you can see my outline really. Here we go. My 3 homiletical points: a heart of desperation, a heart of gratification, and a heart of affirmation. And none of this stuff, I'm not married to this outline. Not yet. I won't be until Sunday morning, to be honest. I'm just going to fix that real quick. But my thesis statement, I typically will do 3 points. This past Sunday I did 4. But I will try to put in some way, I will try to have 1 point. And that's what this is right here, highlighted in the yellow. This is what I believe is the main point of the whole text of the psalm. A heart satisfied in Christ finds nothing else satisfying. Again, I'm not married to that. I might be wrong. Maybe the whole psalm is about squirrels. I don't know. But I'm going to go in, and this is my set outline, and I'm going to try to prove my point, because that's how I understand the psalm, through my meditation, through my reading of the Hebrew, which I don't really read Hebrew, so I had to use a lexicon. I have a whole other system for that, which I'll show a little bit. I am using Logos Max. I'm a paid subscriber. They do not pay me. I don't get any kind of money from Logos for this. In fact, I can't even monetize my account just yet. So, with that said, here we go. This is one thing I do in my preparation. Now, as I said, I've already got my outline done. Next week, maybe when I have my software all up, and depending on how this is received, maybe then I can kind of come in and show you more how I dig in and get my outline. But I did that before, and I showed it on Twitch, and that channel's dumb. So here we go. We're trying it on YouTube. Now, I'm preaching from the Legacy Standard Bible, but I'm not... I love the Legacy Standard. I love the LSB, but I like the ESV too, and a lot of the guys, I'm currently attending Covenant Baptist Theological Seminary, and it sure seems like a lot of those guys like the ESV and NASB ESV 95, not the 2020. And so I'm using the LSB, but sometimes I'll have those other translations open. I think it's a good idea to do that. I'm going to walk you through my setup really fast so you can see what this all is. Now, some of these windows I haven't updated since I first started this. When I'm in a series right now titled 7 Psalms for the Season. It's something I do every other year, and just pick about 7 Psalms, obviously, and kind of just go through those in the Advent season. And this will take us through into the first Sunday of the new year. And I have a purpose for that, for my congregation. I'm not saying you have to do this. And none of the things I'm going to do necessarily are things you should do, unless specified otherwise. This is just going to be how I do certain things throughout the week as I'm preparing my sermon. And I'll try to do these regularly around 9:30 every morning. That's typically when I do this, until about noon. I spend my mornings with the Lord and my afternoons with my church family, with men, and then in my evenings, that's for my family. A little bit messed up schedule this week because of some things that have gotten shifted around. So I'm doing this at 3:21 on Tuesday afternoon. Normally I would do this Tuesday morning. But anyway, okay, so you see my sermon outline, real basic right here. I start with Fact Book. Now, obviously, since 2 weeks ago, I haven't touched Fact Book. And I don't use Fact Book a lot. I just don't. Logos loves to push it. There's probably users out there who get a lot more out of it. It's just not something I always go to right away. It's not that I don't find it useful. It's useful in starting up my series, maybe starting a sermon on a specific verse that I've not touched on anything else. But they've really put a lot into it. There's stuff here. You can even see this here. There's all that it has. There's just the biblical tab. There's the stuff that I have in my library. There's purely the theological resources, counseling resources, and I don't even know what Discover does. I'm assuming help you find other things in their shop so you can spend more money with Faith Life. But I'm not going to mess with that. I don't care about that stuff so much. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but whatever. A new thing they've added is Study Assistant, and I have some goofy questions in there because I was reading this morning about in 1 Kings 1 when it talks about David was dying and they put the young lady Abishag with him, said she was very beautiful. Well, what standard is that? So I asked it based on my books. You can see down here, your books, my books. What does it mean that she's beautiful? Was she smoking hot, or was she just an industrious woman? Because my hunch is, like Ruth, she was a more industrious woman. And of course, it gives this whole answer. It didn't have so much to do with her physical beauty as her personality. And of course, she also served David and things like that. This is just their AI assistant. It's not ChatGPT. I'm looking at my Bible now where I was reading this morning. It's not ChatGPT. It pulls all of its information. I have it set to only use my books. Again, you don't have to do that. If you do not set it to your books, it will pull from everything in the Logos library. And if you want to get a book that it sources or something, you're going to have to pay for that. Last week I was in Psalm 2 and I asked, is this anthropomorphic? In Psalm 2:4, this is anthropomorphic language, right? Now, if you go to Psalm 2, what I'm talking about, Psalm 2:4, he who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord mocks them. I asked because I don't think God really mocks or laughs, and I just wanted to double check. And sure enough, it is anthropomorphic. It's a description of God. God's not petty, you guys. But I'm going to go ahead and just hit new because I'm going to start a whole new sermon. So I don't need any of that other junk in there, and erase all that other stuff. Here's my exegetical guide. This is how I will look stuff up in the Hebrew or the Greek as I search through things, and I will just go word for word what that is. I will do that on paper right here, or I will do it on my iPad, depending on where I'm at that week. But typically I do it on paper, and I'll have that sitting beside me as I'm going through my sermon preparation and things. And that's where I'll really start to outline my sermon and stuff too. Excuse me. I just had a Dr. Pepper and I shouldn't have, but I did. And now I'm burping. So these are my notes. Now, I don't know how this got there. I don't know what that is. So I'm going to delete this note. Boom. Done. Okay. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Can I undelete? Well, I got to figure that out. I just deleted a whole notebook. Didn't mean to do that. Here are my other notebooks. I have a journal. And my whole psalm thing is deleted. Great. Okay, well, I'll go back and find that out because I need that for what I got to show you. So I'm going to go to my trash now. Here we are. Maybe trashed notebooks, Psalms for the season. And I want to restore that, bring it back. Where do I get to do that at? I just closed my note. Oh, geez. This is off to a great start here. Let's open notes again. Because of course, right? All right, let's see. All that. Let's go to the trash again. And trashed notebooks. Here we go. I want to, how do I get this back? No, I don't want to send to proclaim. Okay. Undelete. There we go. Boom. All right. Now, done. Whew. That would have been a real pain. Psalms for the season. This booger is what I wanted to delete. Delete this note. There we go. My fault. Okay. Now that I'm in my psalm, I'm going to highlight, beginning right here. I'm going to highlight this, go all the way down. I'm using a Mac, so I don't know how you do it on another computer. I've only ever really used Logos on a Mac. I'm going to hit New Note, and there it is, Psalm 63. That's my anchor, okay? Now I'm going to put over here Study Bibles. Now, that's how I begin my notes. Now, this is my sermon manager, and I'll pull that back so you can kind of see. This is all of my sermons for the whole year of 2025. I was wrapping up Philippians, and it looks like March 9th was my last sermon in Philippians. And then I did this whole series in John. I titled For This Purpose. It was just kind of a little breather. The purpose for Christ coming is what I talked about for 6 weeks. And we were in John's Gospel, and that took us to Easter. And Easter I did the final installment, There They Crucified Him. And I just preached on those 4 words, what they mean. And you can go back on our church's YouTube channel and check that out if you like. But then we started 1 Timothy, and I was in 1 Timothy. I titled that The Blueprints of the Church, 1 Timothy. We were in that from April 27th, the Sunday after Easter, all the way to October 5th. And then we did a series I titled God's Glorious Grace, where we spent 6 weeks talking about grace and what it means, how we respond to it, the doctrine of election, the doctrine of total depravity and irresistible grace and all of that. So we got into that, and then we began this series where we are now. 7 Psalms for the season. A couple of weeks ago, Psalm 1. This past Sunday, Psalm 2. Now I'm in Psalm 63. Next week we'll be in Psalm 30. Now we get to, now we get to my actual current sermon. And you can kind of see real quick a brief outline. There's my thesis statement in the yellow, heart of desperation, heart of gratification, heart of affirmation. Where am I going to go with all that? Well, we'll see. But I'm not in that today. I'm not touching that today. I'll make my outline maybe Sunday afternoon, maybe even on Monday if I'm really bored on my day off. And then I will come in and I'll do my outline and everything. But today I'm in my notes. And that's just the left section. Now, you can see I kind of bar it off into 3 main sections. I have my exegetical stuff, my study assistant, and my actual sermon and the notes. All right here in this big window. Then I have my Bible verse that I'm preaching on, the actual Bible. I pretty much keep it open because you'll see these little A's. I have everything linked to the Bible that I'm using. So my study Bibles, my commentaries are all linked to this Bible right here. Down below, I have another translation, which, like I said, I have the ESV. And then I have another Legacy Standard because this is just anything else that I'm going to open up. Any other Bible verse, cross-reference, that sort of thing, this is where I'm at. If I see something mentioned in a commentary, this is where I'll go. Then, over here, now these are my study Bible. Well, okay, let me back up. I have search right here. Search is where I will search for things. Maybe a verse is coming to mind and I don't have the time to look it up and search for it. So I'll type in something like, all have sinned. Enter. Now it's going to search the whole Bible. I have it set to look just in the LSB. And this is what I was looking for. Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory. Wow. Wow. I should really not eat lunch before I do these videos. That's what I'm learning. But there we go. So then I click this and look what happens. Down here, boom. I do that because I have send hyperlinks here. So it'll open that in this secondary Bible and it won't mess with this. But as I'm going through my sermon preparation and as I'm reading in my study Bibles, this will sync to all my commentaries down here and all my study Bibles up here. Now, I have a handful of study Bibles that I really trust, that I really like. And again, I'm not saying you have to do this. This is just my opinion and my take on this. I've said that numerous times already, but I'll say it one more time. This is my Logos setup. You don't have to use it. I'm talking to you about ways I took stuff from MacArthur, H.B. Charles, and others, and I condensed it into my own practice. So you're free to do how you want to do and run with it. If you don't like it or you have a suggestion how I can do it better, I'm all ears, but this is it. So, Psalm 63. I'm going to read what John MacArthur wrote. I shall seek you earnestly, and then he has commentary, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm just going to, for right now, I'm just going to highlight that, copy. I'm going to come over here to my notes, type in MacArthur, and I'm just going to hit paste. I don't really need references. I'm not turning this in for a college paper. This is just for my own study because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sync this to my iPad, and tonight when I go home or later when I get time, I'm going to crack open my study guides and I'm going to start reading through it. Or one thing I've started doing is exporting it to a PDF, and then I'll move it over to an app on my iPad and I'll mark it up. I'll write little notes, things like that. I'll typically do that for commentaries too. But I'm just going to copy and highlight, and I'm just going to briefly look through it. And, foxes, scavengers feasting on unburied bodies. That was something that came up on the Twitch feed that doesn't matter to you, but it was interesting because it was a point I was right about something that I wasn't aware I was right. So that's good. I thought I was right, but okay. Moving over here to the Reformation Study Bible. This is R.C. Sproul. R.C. Sproul. however you say it. R.C. Sproul. Somebody corrected me on that a while back. Okay, the setting for this psalm is the desert of Judah. Sproul doesn't really tell us what's going on other than that, and so that's interesting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight Sproul. I'm going to highlight this and go down here to verse 11, and I'm going to copy again, and then I'm going to come over to my notes. I'm going to type Sproul and then enter. And then again, I'm not submitting this for a paper to my seminary, so I don't really care about the reference material. If it's in Turabian or something else, I don't care. But then I'm going to come over here to my ESV. Now, you notice it's changed. That's because it changed when I highlighted it. But I love the ESV Study Bible notes. I think they're really solid. Are they perfect? I would not say that. I don't think there is a perfect study Bible, but I really do enjoy the ESV and the MacArthur and the Reformation Heritage. I think if you get those three, you've pretty much got a solid commentary in your library right there. Okay, again, take off the footnote. And I might just look real quick. What do they have here? Is there anything that was really pushing my buttons while I was doing this? No. Okay, so and then I come back over here to the CSB. Now, I have a friend who loves the CSB, Kofi Adeboyan. He loves the CSB. I preached from it for almost a full year when I was going through the Gospel of Mark. I like the CSB. I don't love the CSB. What I do like is how the CSB sometimes will translate the Psalms. So, I lost my copy. There we go. So sometimes, they say it's when he's on the run from Saul or from Absalom. So they don't know either. Did not mean to do that. Keep hitting the wrong thing. If you're watching this, I appreciate your patience. I'm new to this idea here, but okay, another thing. Whenever I was doing my meditations earlier, and I'll do those next time, next week here on YouTube. But the idea is David was on the run in the desert. We don't know much more about that, whether it was from Saul or Absalom. But that's the backdrop for Psalm 63. That was something I noticed as I was doing my meditation, something I wanted to find out as I was looking at my commentaries on my study Bibles. The people who put together the CSB study Bible, they don't know either, apparently. They knew it was one or the other, same as I did. So a little bit of a pad to my ego, I guess. I'm as lost as they are. I don't know if that's really a build you up moment. Okay, so the next study Bible I have is King James, the King James Reformation Heritage Study Bible. Joel Beeke is a big voice on that, and I like Joel Beeke. I just want to go on record as saying that he reminds me of my father-in-law when I hear him talk. My father-in-law is an incredibly intelligent man who taught himself Greek and Hebrew, and Beeke's style of talking just reminds me of my father-in-law, and I love it. And I just did the wrong thing there. I did it again. He also has, in this study Bible, he has some thoughts for family worship, and I don't usually include those in my notes just because they don't really suit my purpose. I did it again. Doggone it. So here we go. There we go. Come on. All right, here we go. There. Why is it being so stubborn? It has to be because it knows that I'm streaming. There we go. All right. Now, again, I like Joel Beeke, but I don't need him in there more than that. And then I have this Faith Life Study Bible. I do not love the Faith Life Study Bible. I don't care. Fight me on it. I don't care. It's okay, but I'm not a fan of Michael Heiser. If you follow me on social media, you'll notice that I reposted a video that Justin Peters did about Michael Heiser. I'm sure he was a great guy, and there were things he got right, but he's really high on the Nephilim and the Book of Enoch, and he was an influence at Faith Life. He was in a lot of their promotional stuff, and he helped do their study Bible. And look, I don't hate the guy. There were some things he got right. There were a lot I think he got wrong. There's a lot. If you like the cryptozoology stuff, maybe you're a big Heiser guy. That's more of a hobby. That's not faith. I'm sorry. If you want to go hunt Bigfoot in your spare time. You find him, I guarantee it's probably my Uncle Michael. But the point I'm making is it's just not really, it's not something that I care about. He puts a lot more emphasis on things that I think are extra biblical. That's my opinion. Whatever. Put your comments in there. Let me know what you think. But all of that to say this, I really have enjoyed all the other study Bibles. I keep the Faith Life Study Bible in my lineup simply because it's made by Faith Life, and sometimes, rarely, I'll find a little nugget of information, and I always make sure I confirm it with other commentaries, and you want to do that too. If one commentary says, David had smelly feet, and every other commentary says David's feet smelled good, maybe that one commentary, maybe you don't use that as a source. Maybe that's something you dig into on your own at another time. But you don't want to just come out and say that in a sermon. You might say, well, some commentators debate whether or not David had smelly feet, whatever. All that to simply say this. That's my setup right now. You have my study Bibles. You see the notes are all over here on the side. I will read through these later. I can do it on my phone. I can do it from my iPad. It's really nice the way Logos lets you do that. And then down here are my commentaries, and I don't have a ton of commentaries on the Psalms, but what I do have, what I don't have in quantity, I make up for in quality. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow when I get into this and dig a little deeper with my commentaries. Now, one thing I should note that's really cool. If you are somebody who wants to type up your whole sermon or a bunch of things from your notes and put them into your sermons, whatever, you can do that from your notes. You open a sermon notebook, and here we have Psalms for the season. There we go. And I can find Psalm 63 Study Bible. I can put the whole thing, my whole note, right here. Look at this. That's all my study Bible notes right there at the end of my sermon. I don't need that. I'm not going to do that. And if I want to edit it, it just takes me back over there. But that is a cool idea. Like, say you're somebody who highlights a bunch and you add stuff into notes in Logos. I don't personally do that. You can, whatever. This is the AI thing that will make a sermon outline for you. It's nice if you're somebody like me who has brain farts every now and then. And, I'm 43, and every now and then my brain doesn't work like it used to when I was in my 20s. So I might come in here and I might punch in my theme, and just to get my creative juices flowing in my brain, I might have it create an outline. And I'll look at it. I don't think I've ever used the Logos outline, which is whatever. This is something else to see right here. These little quotation marks. If you can see that on your screen. If I'm looking at Heart of Desperation, well, let's just look Satisfaction. Let's just look up and see some quotes in my library about satisfaction. And maybe this is something I want to put in my sermon. Here's something from Augustine. Find satisfaction in him who made you, and only then find satisfaction in yourself as part of his creation. That's pretty good. So I'm just going to take and drag that over there. I may use it. I may not. And here's another quote from Spurgeon. Well, I love Spurgeon, but I feel like I've quoted him a lot lately, so I'm not going to do that. Even though that is a really good quote. Full assurance is not essential to salvation, but is essential to satisfaction. John Piper, nothing keeps God at the center of our worship like the biblical conviction that the essence of worship is deep, heartfelt satisfaction in him, and the conviction that the pursuit of satisfaction is why we are together. Ooh, I really like that. Well, here's another Piper. Piper's really good when it comes to satisfaction. God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him. That's his quote. I love that quote. I quote it often. The peace and satisfaction of our aching souls and our hungry churches and the waiting nations flow not from the perks of professional excellence, but from the pleasures of spiritual communion with the crucified and risen Christ. Amen, John. I am going to take out Augustine and pop in Piper. Don't tell Piper that. He might not. He might not like being compared to Augustine. Maybe he would. I don't know. But that's it. That's all I really do. And I'm going to, like I said, I'll look again at my notes and read those study Bible notes again and again before tomorrow morning when I dive into my commentaries. And I'll just sit and after I do all the copying and pasting, I will go and I will typically just sit down in my big comfy chair in my office and I'll just read through them. Again, sometimes I'll put them into a PDF. I have been saving all of these things as Word documents. So if a friend of mine calls me up and says, hey, you preached on Psalm 63 a while back. Can I have all your research? Sure. I don't care. It's not the whole Logos program, obviously, but maybe they want my sermon manuscript and the notes how I got it there. I also like to be able to take my manuscript. I have a guy in my church now. He wants my sermon manuscript after every sermon. I think he just wants to be able to look it up for himself, and I applaud him for that. In fact, I encourage that because why not? I'm not saying anything I want to hide. I'm not trying to, come up with anything. I'm not reinventing the wheel every time I preach. And so if he wants to look up stuff, most of the time I think he just wants to look up my cross references and see how I connected the dots and things, which is, again, fine. I don't have a problem with that. He'll also see where I don't follow my notes all the time because I am a manuscript preacher. I use manuscripts, but they're more like landing lights. This whole thing, I haven't had a manuscript for any of this. This is just all off the cuff. And you see how scattered and all over the place I am. I can't do that when I'm preaching. I have to be focused. And so I do use a manuscript, but I'm not married to the manuscript. I'm not chained to it. And in fact, most of the time, if I just had my Bible, I could still preach my message, the gist of it. But I would rather have my manuscript. I feel more confident when I have my manuscript. And that helps. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to end the live stream now. And so if you got something out of this, give me a thumbs up. If not, well, okay, don't watch next time, I guess. Thanks a lot.